Rome tells its story in marble and myth. It is the empire of legions marching in perfect order, aqueducts that brought life to dry hillsides, and emperors cast as guardians of civilization. To the popular imagination, Rome's rulers were stern, disciplined, chosen by fate to guide the greatest empire on earth. The Senate is imagined in polished stone halls, dignified and rational. The emperors, cloaked in purple, are remembered as the heirs of Augustus, symbols of order, piety, and the gods' approval. But those images are illusions, statues polished smooth to hide the cracks. In reality, Rome was not just power and law, but spectacle, cruelty, and desire. Nowhere does this truth break through more vividly than in the reign of Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, known forever by his childhood nickname. Caligula. His story begins as the tale of a golden child, paraded in miniature soldiers' boots among the legions, the adored son of the general Germanicus. But it descends into a nightmare where the very heart of Rome, its palaces, its temples, even its noblest citizens, were dragged into rituals of humiliation. At the center of this spiral was one infamous night, the night Caligula declared himself God and Rome his brothel. When Caligula came to power in 37 CE, Rome was weary. The long rule of Tiberius had left the empire scarred. Tiberius had withdrawn to Capri, leaving the capital in the grip of informants, trials, and fear. The people whispered of the emperor's perversions and cruelty. When word came that Tiberius was dead and Caligula had been chosen, Rome erupted in joy. The young emperor was the grandson of Mark Antony, the great-nephew of Augustus, the child of Germanicus, a lineage dripping with imperial promise. Crowds hailed him as savior. Suetonius tells us that for the first months of his reign, Caligula lived up to the hopes. He recalled exiles, ended show trials, staged magnificent games, and showered the populace with gifts. Coins were struck with his image, proclaiming a new golden age, but something changed. In the autumn of that same year, Caligula fell ill. Some say poisoned, others say a brain fever. He recovered, but the Rome that welcomed him found their emperor transformed. Where once he promised stability, he now demanded divinity. Where once he gave Rome games, he turned the palace itself into a theater of degradation. Ancient writers describe a progressive unraveling. Caligula ordered temples dedicated to his own name and commanded sacrifices to be made as though to Jupiter himself. Statues of gods across the empire were decapitated, their heads replaced with his likeness. In Judea, he nearly plunged the region into revolt by insisting that his statue be erected in the Temple of Jerusalem. He crossed lines Rome had always guarded. Augustus, first emperor, had been careful to veil his power in republican forms. Caligula tore away the veil. He strode into the temple of Castor and Pollux and announced it was his personal vestibule. Priests once devoted to Jupiter now officiated in his cult. At banquets, he sat between statues of gods, laughing as he was praised as their equal. But deification was only part of the story. What shocked Rome most deeply was the way Caligula entwined divinity with lust. Suetonius records banquets where he summoned senators and their wives, taking the women to his chamber, while their husbands sat powerless at the table. He returned to brag about their qualities in bed, reducing Rome's proudest families to objects of ridicule. Rumors spread of incest with his sisters, Drusilla, Julia Livilla, and Agrippina the Younger. Drusilla in particular he elevated as a goddess, publicly kissing her in ways that scandalized even jaded Romans. When she died, Caligula ordered the empire into mourning, declaring her divine. He himself is said to have dressed as Venus and presented himself to worshippers in the guise of a goddess. And then came the infamous transformation of the imperial palace into what ancient writers call a brothel. Caligula ordered that rooms of the palace be set up as chambers of prostitution. Noble women were forced to serve, men of high status compelled to sell their bodies, while the emperor profited from their humiliation. Guests arriving at banquets were directed toward these chambers, as though entering a temple of lust where Caligula himself was high priest. This culminated, according to tradition, in one night of grotesque performance. By torchlight, before the senators and Rome's elite, Caligula proclaimed he was not simply emperor, he was God incarnate. He declared the palace itself his temple, its chambers his sanctuaries, its beds his altars. Nobility would serve as attendants, their bodies as offerings, their degradation as worship. Rome, he announced, was no longer an empire. It was his household, his brothel, his stage. Was this night real? Or was it the invention of hostile writers? The evidence is murky, but pieces align. Coins minted in his reign carry the inscription divus, divine, something no living emperor before had dared. Archaeologists have uncovered fragments of statues showing him crowned with the rays of the sun, echoing Apollo. Provincial inscriptions reveal dedications to him directly, as though he were already a god. Excavations on the Palatine Hill have revealed banquet halls and hidden chambers in the Domus Transitoria, the palace Caligula began. Some were fitted with advanced waterworks, capable of flooding floors for staged spectacles. Mosaics show gods seducing mortals, myths of divine violation, scenes that mirror the atmosphere of forced ritual. These physical traces do not prove every rumor, but they show a man deliberately erasing the boundary between ruler and deity, private and public, sex and power. Why did he do it? To ancient historians, the answer was simple: madness. Suetonius paints him as unhinged, ordering armies to collect seashells as spoils of war, laughing at executions, feeding prisoners to wild beasts. Cassius Dio calls him a monster, a man who delighted in turning order into chaos. But modern scholars have asked whether there was more. Power in Rome was always a performance. Augustus cloaked himself in tradition, Tiberius in fear. Caligula may have chosen a different script, one of deliberate transgression. By forcing senators to watch their wives taken, he reminded them of their impotence. By declaring himself God, he made loyalty not a political duty, but a religious obligation. By turning the palace into a brothel, he inverted Rome's values, showing that rank and virtue meant nothing in the face of his will. It was domination not through law, but through humiliation. Of course, Caligula's reign could not last. In January of 41 CE, after only 4 years in power, members of the Praetorian Guard struck him down. He was stabbed in a corridor of the palace, his body left hacked and bleeding. His wife and young daughter were murdered soon after. The Senate moved quickly to erase his memory, melting his coins, toppling his statues, purging his name from records, and yet the stories survived. Perhaps because they were too shocking to forget, or because they captured a truth deeper than fact. Whether every detail is accurate or not, Caligula became the symbol of power unchained. The emperor who turned the empire into a stage for his own desires, the night Caligula declared himself God and made Rome his brothel, is more than a tale of debauchery. It is a parable of what happens when absolute power strips away restraint. Religion becomes theater. Politics becomes humiliation. Desire becomes domination. Rome, in that night, was forced to worship not Jupiter, not Mars, but the darkest appetites of a single man, and that is why his shadow endures. Not because of marble monuments or great victories, but because he showed how empire itself can collapse into madness when one man convinces himself he is a god. Some histories are remembered, but others are abandoned.